The New Orleans Pelicans just keep winning, and more importantly, they are having fun while doing it. But there were unlikely heroes in their blowout win over the Nets. I'll tell you who powered the Pelicans to victory and why you're seeing this team at their best right now. It's today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pelicans, your daily New Orleans Pelicans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another edition of Locked On Pelicans, the daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Pelicans and NBA, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, available wherever you get your podcasts and available on YouTube. I'm your host, Pelicans Insider, credential member of the media, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter, here with y'all on this Wednesday, day after the Pelicans blow out the Brooklyn Nets, 104-91. Just another victory for New Orleans, who's now only a half game back of the Los Angeles Clippers for the 4th seed. Can they catch them? We'll be talking about that a lot here on Locked On Pelicans. So be sure to make Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We are here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Become an everyday or listen Monday through Friday to the show so you never miss anything that's going on, because look, this team is fun right now. You saw that Zion alley-oop lob from Najee Marshall. We'll talk about it in a second, but this team is clicking. And you know they're clicking because they have won as many games this season as of now as they did all of last year. They had 42 wins last year, 42 wins right now. There's still 14 games left to go. There's a chance that they could get to 50 wins. And this team right now is kind of the talk of the NBA. This team is not only just kind of national media darlings right now, which you rarely see from them. And the reason they're that is because they're locked in. Everybody is locked in this game. We'll kind of get into how they built up that big lead in the first half, and I'll get to that in the next segment here, Larry Nance Jr. being key to that. But one thing that just really kind of stood out to you in this game was just how ready the Pelicans were for it. We knew they were going to beat the Brooklyn Nets. The Nets are like dysfunctional in extreme, right? And the Pelicans playing some of their best basketball of the year. They're going to get this victory. But they race out to a big lead. And then at the start of the third quarter, with a 19-point lead going into the break, they come out a little bit flat and then just relock back in and just blow out the Nets again, right? You saw Zion really turn it on in the second half of this game where he had 18 of his 26 points. 18 of his 28 points, when it looked like maybe this could get away from the Pelicans. Maybe it was going to be a letdown in the second half. He just said I'm going to take over. And that's exactly what he did. You saw the coaching staff engaged, the players engaged the entirety of the time. When you have a big lead like that, you often see teams let their foot off the gas. They led by as many as 24 in this one. And instead of doing that, instead of just letting things go, the coaching staff was on players. You saw Willie Green late in the second half, in the fourth quarter, like really going kind of at Jose Alvarado in this one, right? That says that they're just not giving up. They're not going to coast. They kind of understand the stakes and know that they need to take care of business. And this team is doing it, right? And they're doing it with everyone playing defense, which is their identity. They looked like an elite defensive team, albeit against a very hapless Brooklyn Nets team, right? But everyone just bought in, competing till the very end of this game says something, because the Pelicans in years past would have either blown that lead or would have blown it earlier on in the season. And instead of that, they're locked in and they're closing games out and they're just punishing these bad teams that they're playing. And with Zion looking like this, look, the rest of the NBA is not looking forward to playing the Pelicans whatsoever at any point in time. He is easily playing his best basketball of the year. He's getting close to maybe playing the best basketball of his career here as well. And I think that's worth mentioning. He was a menace on defense, as he's been for a while. That lob from Najee Marshall, you saw how much fun these guys are having. What you're seeing right now and why the Pelicans are playing at their best is this is what it looks like when chemistry clicks, when things kind of fall into into place. This is something that if you're an everydayer, I've been hammering all season long, that when we looked at the Pelicans early on in the year, a lot of those third quarter blown double-digit leads leading to losses, right? Well, they were a good team, and I'd repeatedly said they were a good team, but they were nowhere near reaching their ceiling. You know, you look at a team like the Sacramento Kings, they've kind of reached their ceiling. There's not much more room for them to grow. Yes, they're a good team, relatively, but there's only so much more they can do. The Pelicans had another level or two that they could reach if they ever figured it out. And it was a matter of if, not necessarily when, they were going to be really good. Well, I think we've hit the part of when they figure it out. It's no longer an if. They have figured it out. You're seeing them put the ball in Zion's hands for point Zion, right? You're seeing Brandon Ingram as that secondary playmaker creator that's there as a safety valve or to take threes. He took 5 in this game. That's an awesome thing that we want to see from him. But 6 assists in a very just easy night. Even when he didn't have his shot falling, he was contributing in other ways. You know, Herb Jones making his shots. CJ, Trey, we'll get into all of those guys in the next segment here. But this is a team that the chemistry has clicked. The defense is leading to offense. You're seeing the offense run through Zion, so they're getting the shots that they want to get. All of those things. This team has kind of hit that not if, then when, that when portion of when things click, they're going to look really good. And, oh yeah, they might get home court advantage in the first round, which would be a very big deal. They've only done that once before in franchise history. You know, they're on pace to have they now have back-to-back winning seasons, which has only happened one other time in team history, right? Like, this is a really significant season, and it took a while for the Pelicans to find their rhythm, to hit that ceiling, or to start to level up, but they did at exactly the right time. No one wants to play this Pelicans team right now. Did you see that lob that Zion flushed down? That picture is ridiculous. And he's active on defense. Okay, this is a real fun team to watch, and they're just all bought in. They all get it, and you're seeing the pieces fall into place. It took a little bit longer than we would have liked, but the chemistry has clicked. They're a scary team right now, playing their best basketball by far of the year with still more room to grow. But they did get a big lead in the first half of the game, but it wasn't Zion, it wasn't Brandon Ingram. It was a couple of unlikely heroes that did that. I want to give them some recognition because that's going to be important, particularly in the postseason with what the Pelicans are doing offensively. Let's break that down coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Right now, though, I'm excited to tell you about eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. I work on all of my cars, and all of my parts on all the 3 cars come from eBay Motors. So eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. You want to make it go faster. You want to make it sound louder. You want to make it look cooler. Everything you could need, eBay Motors has covered for you. You need a new window that I just replaced on the 50-year-old Corvette. You can get that there. Those type of obscure parts or the parts that just keep your car going, they've got you covered with over 122 million parts for your vehicle. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for, and with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. And with all the parts at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We are here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about the New Orleans Pelicans, whether it's the X's and O's, whether it's breaking down the wins, how they could improve this offseason, the salary cap. We cover it all here. So become an everyday or listen Monday through Friday to the Locked On Pelicans podcast. And now for your second listen, go check out Locked On Saints. Chase Young going to the New Orleans Saints. Ross Jackson, host of Locked On Saints, has everything you want to know about the black and gold. Some weird injury stuff in there too, like the guy's hurt. I'm going to go there after this and get some sense of what's going on around the team there. But right now we are talking about their win, the Pelicans win, over the Brooklyn Nets, 104-91. The Pelicans just keep stacking wins, putting a ton of pressure on the Los Angeles Clippers here, and you love to see it. Now, I didn't do a show yesterday. It was my birthday on Monday, and just dinner ran later, and I was exhausted and then didn't have time to record the show in the morning like I wanted to. We're going to look at Zion. We just talked about him a lot in the last segment. Could he make All-NBA? I've got my All-NBA breakdown. I'm not saying he will. I'm not saying he won't. There's a lot of competition there. I want to kind of look at him in comparison to some of the other guys because, look, you play like this, people are taking note of him. I think there's a very good chance he could make All-NBA. Does that impact his contract at all? I'm going to break it down for you in tomorrow's episode of Locked on Pelicans. Could Zion make All-NBA? That is actually coming tomorrow. I have it all planned out and everything. It's going to be a great show. Do not miss this one coming up. But let's keep talking about the win over the Brooklyn Nets here, right? Easy win overall. What I love about this team, again, just not playing down to their level of competition. But at one point in the first quarter, I got a little bit nervous. Zion Williamson picked up 2 fouls early on in the first quarter and had to sit. And this was where I was really intrigued, actually. You know, one of the things the team talked a lot about earlier on in the season was you want an offense that anyone can do, right? They're running kind of the point Zion offense. Put the ball in his hands. The court gravity he has just creates open shots and advantages. You call him kind of like an advantage creator. He's creating advantages for other players for your team just by his pure court gravity. That's a very good thing. No one else on the team, other than maybe a little bit of Brandon Ingram, is that type of player. So if you build your offense around Zion and he misses significant time, as has happened every other year in his career, pretty much, your offense, in theory, could fall apart. And that's why the Pelicans did not want to do that earlier on in the year. They didn't want to go with this kind of Zion-centric approach because if he gets hurt, what do you do? And they still had designs on making the playoffs if something like that happened. Now, the good news here is, knock on wood, he's been healthy and you haven't needed to worry about that, so you can keep giving him the ball. But here we had a situation where he wasn't in the game when he normally would be. And how does that impact things going forward? Would that open the door for the Brooklyn Nets? Would things fall apart on offense? And it wasn't the case at all. And this is where the depth of the Pelicans is extremely useful and nice to have, right? The bench can help them weather this sort of Zion-less period of time, and that's normally what your rotation isn't doing. And that's where guys like CJ McCollum are very important. He's been under a little bit of heat, not having great games recently, but in this one, he had just an easy 16 points on 6 of 12 shooting, 4 of 8 from 3, along with 5 assists. He can step in and do a little bit of point guard if you need him to. You don't want him to do that all the time. He certainly works better a little bit off ball and is just kind of a self-creator, I think. But if he's going to drain threes like that, and I think he had 3 in the first quarter, it's going to help you weather those minutes when Zion's on the bench when that's not normally what you would be doing. Same for a guy like Larry Nance Jr., who's just stepped in the first half and did work. Right? You know, he's had a bit of an up and down year overall, trending above average, I'd say. And he came in and really stabilized this offense. You know, on a night where Trey Murphy wasn't having his shot falling as much, right? 10 points on 13 shot attempts, 1 of 8 from 3 is not great there. That bench unit, because of CJ, because of Larry, even with Trey out there, was able to go out and score. And that's why having these guys is really important. And these are just more tools in the toolbox for head coach Willie Green to tap into and use however he feels he needs to. You know, these are just useful things that you have that can help get you these wins. And one of the things I think we've seen from Willie Green this year is as the season has gone on, he has gotten a whole lot better, and he definitely has like the pulse of this team, knows what they need, knows what to do, knows which guys to trust, and the rotation is bearing that out, right? They're running more or less a 9-man rotation for the most part, and I think that's going to probably be what it is going forward. We'll get into Jordan Hawkins, Dyson Daniels in a minute here in the next segment because we do have an injury update from Dyson Daniels, and it's a good one, a positive one. So you like that the depth can shine through in this. Now, that's very useful in the regular season. If you have Zion in foul trouble or an injury or something like that in the postseason, it's an entirely different story, I'd say. But right now, this is going to help get you wins, and that's all you're looking for. Just get wins. Keep the pressure on the Clippers to see if you can get home court advantage, even if, and this will probably be a show at some point, I don't think they need home court advantage in the first round. But we don't need to talk about it right now. They could be the 5th seed, and I think they'd be fine. They're a good road team, and we'll talk about that too because it's interesting to see. But the depth here really shines through, and it's been really useful at times this year. And to see them kind of weather the storm without Zion, even if it's against a bad Nets team, and the Nets, again, are truly atrocious in my opinion, I like it. Obviously, we like that, right? I think that's going to be useful. And if that means Zion can get a little bit more rest and you're not worried about losing games, you can play him fewer minutes at the end of the season and have him really ready to go in the postseason. And that's why a guy like CJ, with this team not really experiencing the normal like trials and tribulations that they've had in years past, is here on the, not on the bench, but in the starting lineup, but they're with you in kind of the third, fourth option at times. That's a really useful player. So having him step up, having Larry Nance Jr. step up, seeing Herb Jones make his threes and do his Herb Jones things was an awesome thing. What I also loved about Trey Murphy is when his shot wasn't falling, he tried to impact the game in other ways. 8 rebounds is a great thing to see. 3 assists from him is good. Putting pressure on the rim when he needed to, when they needed him to, when the game got away from the team a little bit, deciding to just attack the basket, be aggressive, move the ball around. That's when they're kind of at their best. And you really saw it in this win over the Brooklyn Nets. They had that kind of right idea of what to do offensively to go out and get points. And look, the Nets kind of made it easy. And when your bench can come in and just completely like cold clock the opponent is what happened here, right? Trey Murphy, who was 4 of 13, was a positive 15 off the bench. Like, think about that for a second. 10 points on 13 shots is terrible efficiency, right? Although the 8 3-point attempts are good because that does space the court. Normally, you go 4 of 13. That's not going to be a positive thing here, right? Brandon Ingram, 4 of 12, was a +5. Still good, don't get me wrong. But Trey Murphy to be a little bit worse and be a positive 15 tells you what was working with that bench unit and some of these guys being threaded in with the starting lineup, and it was allowing them to get these, big moments that they really wanted to see. And again, it's why the Pelicans are winning as many games as they are. Does that play well in the playoffs? That's something that we'll look at a little bit later in the season. We don't need to jump into that necessarily right now with 14 games left to go. But it is a very good sign for at least those 14 games, and that's what kind of our eye is on the moment, and that's what the Pelicans' eye on is at the moment, because I do think they want home court in the first round. I do think that builds a lot of confidence and sends a big message here, even if they don't really need it. And yeah, you get what I'm saying. I think it's still going to be a fun end of the year, and I like that the bench is stepping up. That gives me a lot of, hope for the postseason. When it comes to the bench and in the postseason, keeping on this theme here a little bit, benches are going to be better for teams that you're playing, unless you get like the Phoenix Suns, who are really thin. But some of these other teams do have a lot of depth to them. The Clippers do too. That's an advantage for them. Not when they play New Orleans, though. So New Orleans winning these minutes, continually winning these minutes, I think negates advantages of some of these other good teams that they're going to end up playing. And that is a very good sign and something that the Pelicans can really kind of look forward to not being a negative for them. And I think that's a great thing. So coming up, Dyson Daniels. What will the rotation look like when he returns? Because, by the way, that's closer than you might think. Let's talk about that coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Right now, though, I'm excited to tell you about Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? I am. Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. There's the 2024 Nissan Rogue. It's perfect for city drives and great escapes. With class-exclusive Google built in, it's your always updating assistant to call on for almost anything. So gone are the days of connecting your phone. Google Assistant, Google Maps, Google Play Store are all built right into the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system. The 2024 Rogue is the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. There's also the 2024 Nissan Armada. It's going to change what you expect from a full-size SUV. Picture a rugged 4x4 that can seat up to 8 in first-class luxury in style. Tow bigger, explore further in the 2024 Nissan Armada. Take the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Armada, or the Nissan Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, breaking down everything you want to know. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Join almost 10,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well. We'll probably do a live show this week, maybe after the game on Thursday. Probably not for the All-NBA show, which is tomorrow. So if you want to know if Zion can make All-NBA, what that would mean for him, the team, we're going to be covering that. Who's he competing with? We'll look at all of that in tomorrow's episode of Locked On Pelicans. You do not want to miss that one. Then we'll probably do a live show after the game on Thursday here. So if you want to come hang out, ask your questions live, we do a bonus segment in all of those. Join subscribe to the Locked On Pelicans YouTube page so you don't miss when that ends up happening. So, look, this is kind of one of those games that makes me laugh, right? Where it's like, oh man, they just kind of blew out the Brooklyn Nets. Like, what do I talk about? It was just like the easiest victory. Don't worry, I'm a pro. I know how to structure a show. But I was like, oh, okay. Maybe they're just, when you cruise to like a really easy win, right? Like they were up by 24 and it didn't seem hard, did it? Like it didn't seem hard for them to do that whatsoever. Just a super easy thing for them to go and do, and they did, and it was awesome to see. Again, beating bad teams is the mark of a good team. The Pelicans haven't always done that. We've seen them lose to subpar competition earlier in the year by blowing double-digit leads in the second half. Not in this one. This one got close. Pelicans called a timeout, came right out of the break. Zion took over. Boom, game done. They just, at that point, cruised to a victory. I love that. And they're having fun doing it. You can only play who's on your schedule and who's in front of you. So beat up on those bad teams. But will things change a little bit? One of the things I've said is I think this team maybe is holding back on some adjustments and things they could do because, look, you're winning. How much do you want to change? How much do you want to rock the boat? And I'd say the answer to that is like, don't do that at all. Just keep winning games and don't worry about anything and make whatever adjustments you need going into the postseason when you know who you're going to be playing and you can kind of game plan that around that a little bit more. You know, one of the things that I think is a bit of a misnomer in the NBA is that you have like a completely different game plan for opponents on a night-to-night basis. Somewhat, yes, but the Pelicans by and large know what they like to do, what they're good at, and they're going to just try and go and do it. The way I use it as an example is the Super Bowl, a lot of NFL games, right? You script your first 15 to 25 offensive plays. Like you're just going to run those in order, more or less, with a little bit of tweaks here and there to kind of test out the defense and see what's going on. Look, the Pelicans know what they're going to do on offense. They know what they're going to do on defense. If someone's kind of hot or whatever, you can shift a little bit, but you don't have time to put in new, entirely different game plans and things like that. So the Pelicans know what they're doing. So if it's winning, don't change things, right? If it's not winning, if it's not working, that's a different story. But the Pelicans are winning their games right now. So Dyson Daniels, who's been out for a little while with a knee injury here, is getting close to returning. Willie Green said after practice the other day that he had played 3-on-3. He's been out since February 12th when he had a meniscus tear. And he played 3-on-3. We've seen him getting some light work in. He went through a full practice too. Hasn't played 5-on-5 yet, but that's obviously going to get really close. And it's probably about a week to 2 weeks away from him really being ready for like an NBA game. But that's coming up really soon. So when he's healthy, when he's back, does he get into the rotation? And I'm not sure of the answer because, again, this team is winning games. Do they really change anything yet? Do you put in someone in significant minutes in a key time of a game that hasn't played in, at this point, it'll probably be about a month and a half, 2 months before he really sees action. I don't know if you want to put that guy right back out there and see what he's capable of doing when it could cost you a game. And the Pelicans schedule gets a little bit harder soon. You've got a couple of, you get the Pistons here, but the Orlando Magic, the Miami Heat, those are not going to be easy games for the New Orleans Pelicans. Not that he'd be playing in these, but after that, can you afford to play a guy like Dyson Daniels against the Celtics when he hasn't been NBA ready for a minute? And that's something that would worry me. So with this team winning games, I don't think they're going to really make any changes. I think they like this 9-man rotation that they're running. Najee Marshall, Jose Alvarado, the guys that you could look at dropping from your 9-man rotation, reducing their minutes. They're playing well, y'all. Like Najee is the best lob thrower on the team by far. And you saw what he tossed up to Zion. The chemistry with him out there on the court is high. They bring a level of energy that I think is really important. They're making shots, which is also a really important thing here too. Najee is shooting almost 40% from three. Jose Alvarado is shooting 37% from three. Those are really good numbers. I don't think you can really drop those guys. So Dyson Daniels, while an elite on-ball defender, right? An elite on-ball defender. Some people think he's better than Herb Jones, kind of pound for pound with all of that on this, within the team think that. That's a useful guy to have, and you might need him at times, but I think that's also maybe kind of break glass in case of emergency where if Herb Jones is in foul trouble, you can go then with Dyson, but you don't need to disrupt your normal rotation unless you run into a situation like that, right? Like as we say here in Louisiana, it's a little bit of lagniappe to have Dyson Daniels there, right? More of a luxury, a little something extra that you can use if you need to. And it's not something that's required. I think things are working so well. The defense has been very good that you don't need to mix things up. So as I'd like to see him be healthy and then have him available. I want to change the rotation right now. Look, I don't want to see minutes at this moment yet for Jordan Hawkins, for Matt Ryan, right? These guys have gotten you where you are, and the Pelicans are looking not incredible, but very, very good. Don't mess with that. Don't mess with what's working till it really stops working, and don't then adjust, off of just one game. It needs to be for a minute here. But as you're pushing for fourth in the West, don't play a guy cold that could cost you the game. Remember in the play-in tournament game last season against the Oklahoma City Thunder where Kira Lewis Jr. was the first sub in off the bench and he hadn't played in a month? And it's like, what are we doing here, right? That's not a situation we want to see New Orleans in. And they lost those minutes. You can't do that. Keep doing what's working. That's what I want to see the Pelicans doing here. That's what I think they are doing here. And I think that's the most important thing. They're taking care of business. Just a half game back of the Los Angeles Clippers right now with some very winnable games going forward, momentum on their side. They're now 16-5 in their last 21 games. They were 15-5 going into this one. So 16-5 coming in. They're crushing teams that are beneath them in the standings, particularly on the road. We'll get into that's going to be a future show. Why are they a good road team? They're a good home team too, but their numbers across the board are up on the road, which I think is an incredible thing. That's why I was whispering maybe they don't need to have home court advantage in the first round. Doesn't hurt to have it though, and that's what the Pelicans are looking at right now. So tomorrow on Locked On Pelicans, we're going to be talking about could Zion Williamson make one of the All-NBA teams, where he kind of stands, what those teams look like they're going to be. There's a wrinkle in it this year. Did you know that? They changed the way the voting works. I'll fill you in on all of that. And that opens the door for Zion Williamson. That's all going to be in tomorrow's episode of Locked On Pelicans. So make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Join the almost 10,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'll probably have a live show on Thursday after the Pelicans game when they take on the Orlando Magic. That should be a fun one. We'll probably go live right after the game ends. I'll answer your questions live in the moment there. It'll also, of course, be posted wherever you get your podcast. So that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Pelicans. Another win. Pelicans stacking them. As always, I'm your host, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter, and I'll be back with y'all tomorrow to talk about could Zion Williamson make an All-NBA team, and what's that mean for him and the team.